speaker, I would like to invite you to join me in thanking both the Monfort Executive Professor Program and Delta Sigma Chi for all of their time and hard work coordinating today's event. I would also like to recognize College Credit Union and the Colorado-Wyoming Credit Union Foundation for their very generous financial contribution that enabled us to host the book signing reception that will follow in the student lounge and provide each of you with your personal copy of The Secrets of Money. The world of personal finance escapes no one. Your major doesn't matter. Your education level doesn't matter. Your career path doesn't matter. All of us will be challenged with making countless financial decisions time and time again. And while some things in our lives will grant us a do-over, like great forgiveness for that really hard calculus class, our financial health generally does not. We are fortunate to have an extremely successful individual that is here today to share his 10 secrets to lifelong financial success. Today's speaker grew up in a hardworking middle-class family in Littleton, Colorado, a highly driven and motivated individual who was a self-made millionaire before the age of 25 and in a position to retire by 30, despite dropping out of college to grow his first business, a charter bus transportation company. He has started over 15 different businesses. His work has been recognized nationally by the Wall Street Journal, Business Week magazine, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and locally by the Denver Post, the Fort Collins Coloradan, the Denver Business Journal, and the Northern Colorado Business Report. He has made numerous national TV appearances, including the NBC Today Show, the Fox Business Channel with Neil Kubota, and PBS Money Hunt. Although he recently returned to the telecom industry, he spent the prior 3 years traveling the country promoting financial literacy requirements at the high school level and gathering film for a shocking documentary that exposes the financial literacy epidemic sweeping America. It was in this endeavor that I had my first opportunity to meet him and share a common appreciation for educating individuals on personal finance topics. Aside from his passion to increase financial literacy, he is an FAA licensed pilot that enjoys flying his Cessna 182, boating, scuba diving, and one of my favorites, wakeboarding. He travels extensively, both domestically and internationally, recently returning from business trips to South Africa and India. In a previous life, he was also a Formula race car driver. So please prepare to be inspired, educated, and entertained, and join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Mr. Braun Mincher.
Okay, we need to turn any mics or volume or ET phone home. Can everybody hear me? Anybody not hear me? Let me ask you that question. So it sounds like that's good. Well, first of all, thank you for the very kind introduction. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with you guys today. As Professor McClatchy recently said, I went back into the private industry last year. I had a non-compete agreement that expired. And so I'm back to running a telecommunications company. And unfortunately, as much as I love speaking at events like this, I don't get the opportunity to do this very much anymore. But my biggest passion is speaking with students both at the high school and college level. And moreover than that, I live in Fort Collins and also in the Scottsdale part of the year. But moreover than that, I need to give all you guys a pat on the back. This will probably be the only speaking event I'm doing this year. And the reason I'm doing it is because I think so highly of the University of Northern Colorado and the Monfort College of Business. And the students that come from this group, I've had the opportunity to interact with multiple times over the last couple of years. And you are a very interesting group, and I mean that in a very good way. You guys are among the best that I have ever seen. And as an employer, I would give consideration to a student at Monfort College of Business before any other business program in the state of Colorado. And I don't say that lightly. And in some of the work that I've done the last few years, I've had the ability to travel across the country, meet students at all sorts of different high schools, all sorts of different colleges, and particularly spent a lot of time in Colorado. So you guys have a great group here. You're a good group of students. You have a great program, you have excellent professors, you have a lot of resources, and I don't think you should take that for granted. I think you guys should be very proud and also really being proud of that. And I've had the good fortune to get to know Professor McClatchy through this process in the last couple of years. She is a fantastic resource for you guys. She really gets it. She knows how to take the theory out of things and put the practicality in so you can relate it to your real life. She really cares about you guys as students with us a lot of time. The only favor I would ask is anybody can encourage you to get on Facebook. You can make my life a lot easier. That's sort of our running joke. I apologize. I'm getting over a cold, so I may have to grab a sip of water from time to time. But thank you guys again for coming today. It really means a lot to me. I'm glad to be invited here. What's interesting is I was actually on the stage. I was trying to think a few years ago when I got an honorary induction in Delta Sigma Pi. So I know there's a lot of fellow brothers here today. I just want to thank you guys for the turnout, for sponsoring this, and for having me come out. I've got some notes with me because I broke down some statistics I'll be sharing with you momentarily. I think you'll find them pretty interesting. My presentation today that I'm going to go through normally takes about 8 hours. The college has asked me to condense it down to only 5 hours, so I just focused on well seated. We'll take a little break in the middle. And Professor McClatchy told me that there's a test at the end of this on the material I cover, but it's only 100 questions and it only counts for 25% of your time. I'm just kidding about that. Does anybody know that today is tax day? How ironic is that? April 15th is tax return day. Hopefully everybody's filed their tax return, or at least an extension. If you haven't done so, you have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 13 hours to go to the post office and get that postmark, so I would encourage you to do so. And you know, there's a lot of people standing in line getting that done. So what a perfect day for us to have this discussion about money than tax day when it's due. I have one goal for today for my presentation. My number one goal is that I provide you with some information today that's practical and relatable to you, that you can take home soon in the short term and in the long term, and something you can use to apply to your real life. So much of what we teach in school is taught from a theoretical standpoint, and I don't know about you, but for me, I had a tough time seeing how I applied theory to real world practice. And so my goal is to go over some points today and teach you from a practical standpoint rather than a theoretical standpoint. What topic could be more timely than personal finance? We are facing the worst financial dilemma of our lifetimes, probably. Certainly more than in a generation. Young adults like you guys, and people like me included, are in the worst financial situation more than a generation. Some interesting things about new college graduates, which supposedly all you guys are probably going to be in a very short period of time. As new college graduates, you are going to go out in the real world and face the highest unemployment rates in 25 years. You are going to graduate with record student loan debt and have the highest rate of student loan defaults of anyone. And you're going to go out into a real world where you have prohibitively expensive health insurance rates. And I don't want to make this a political discussion, but the healthcare reform thing we just passed is borderline criminal for the burden that's going to put on your generation and my generation in years to come. And so all these reasons go back to why we as individuals need to take personal responsibility for our own financial education and for our own financial success. Money matters today are more complex than they've ever been. You look back just a generation ago, or heck, even 10 years ago, when you went to go get a mortgage, you would go to your local bank, your local credit union, and they had one kind of mortgage for your home. It was called a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. Today, there are over 600 different exotic mortgages out there. 600. A generation ago, or even 10 years ago, people would rely on government Social Security or a company pension plan for their retirement. Today, we don't have that. We deal with 401ks and IRAs, which arguably are better. They put control back in your hands as a consumer, and ideally, you have a better opportunity to make more money. But the downside is we never get taught about these things. We give people all this control, and we've had all this complexity change, but we don't teach people the basics of what they need to know. Parents aren't doing a very good job of teaching financial education. Schools aren't doing a very good job of teaching financial education. One recent survey from Charles Schwab Foundation found that only 30% of students, being teenagers, seniors in high school surveyed, only 30% said their parents cared if they got basic financial education. 30%. Unbelievable. The reason is that financial literacy, anything about personal finance, is an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people. Schools don't want to teach it. We'll talk about that in a minute. The parents, in many cases, are uncomfortable teaching it. They would rather talk about religion, politics, or sex before they would rather talk about personal finance or financial education. Schools do not want to teach financial literacy and financial education for 3 reasons. It's really unfortunate, but I spent 3 years going around the country talking to schools and I found this out. 3 reasons. we got to think about what the mentality of schools are. When I'm talking schools, I'm mainly talking about high schools. Schools have three reasons. Number one, teaching financial education does not help with graduation rates. Schools want to try to graduate as many students as they can, so they continue to get their funding, they keep their jobs, and they stay in the community, what have you. And if you required a personal finance class to graduate, arguably, it would lower the graduation rates. So that's number one. Number two, financial education in the high school system does not do anything to help get students into college. I have not been able to find one college out there that has a prerequisite of financial education to get in their school. And I don't mean to be crass by saying this, but to some degree, all that colleges care about financial education and financial literacy is can you pay their tuition. There's exceptions to every rule, but until colleges start making financial literacy education a requirement, just like they do with math, English, and science, the high schools aren't going to teach it. And then for the third reason, I don't think that schools, particularly high schools, don't teach financial education. If you really think about this, schools to some degree teach the test. You guys were just like me. You probably had to take the SATs and the ACTs and whatever CSTAT tools, scores, whatever standardized tests. You think back to those tests, there's not one question on those that relates to financial literacy. There may be questions about math, English, science, but nothing about car loans or getting a mortgage or real estate. And if the people that do the standardized tests would put questions on there about personal finance, I guarantee you every high school in America would start teaching financial education tomorrow. I'm going to break my presentation down into three sections. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself so you have a little history and a little background, and I can tell you a couple funny stories. The second piece I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about why financial success is important. And it's probably not for the reasons you think. What jumps into your head is material wealth, MTV cribs. We're going to talk about that a little bit. You know, I'm not joking with you. You guys all know what I'm talking about. And then the final piece is I'm going to give you the secrets. I'm going to give you my 10 secrets to financial success. What I really would like you to do when I get to that section is listen to what I'm saying rather than writing them down. They are all listed in Chapter 10 of your book. Chapter 10 covers my keys of financial success, and actually there's 20 of them in the chapter of the book, but because of time today, I condensed them down into 10. A couple of housekeeping items. We have a relatively limited amount of time here today, so I'm going to be able to summarize some topics, maybe not go into great depth, but everything I talk about today is talked about in detail in the book. And I'm just so appreciative for the supporters and sponsors and everybody that made sure that you guys all got that book as a takeaway. I would argue that the value of what you read in this book is equal to the same value you get with a four-year education. So tell me if I'm wrong, but after you read it, you let me know. Financially, if you read what's in that book and you find what's in there, it will make you as much or more money over your lifetime to be going to school for 4 years. They're both important, but it's still incredibly valuable stuff. And so we're going to talk about all those different things. Let's see here. At the end, I'll leave a few minutes for a Q&A session. So if you don't mind, hold any questions you have at the end, write them down. And at the end, we'll use 10 or 15 minutes. Plus, I'm going to stay as long as you guys want me to with reception afterwards. I'll be happy to sign books. I'll answer questions. I've got nothing else to do this afternoon other than you guys. You guys are in for me. And the final housekeeping item is the feedback forms. I think those all got stuffed in your book, or you got one when you came in. I do a lot of speaking events, and I greatly appreciate your feedback. I want to know what you like, what you don't like, what I can do to improve, so that I can constantly tweak these discussions. And so if you don't mind, as I'm going through the presentation, if you wouldn't mind filling those out with the front and the back to it, and then leave them on the table or somewhere on the end. I read every single one of these usually a couple of days after the event, but your feedback is incredibly important. So without further ado, let me grab a sip of water and we'll kind of work our way through today's presentation. All right, let me tell you a little bit about myself. And I tell you this because I want to build credibility with you and be relatable. And I just want to show you that I've been so fortunate to have a variety of different ventures that I've been involved with. Everything from professional car racing, to telecommunications, to bus transportation, to fuel hauling, aircraft leasing, everywhere in between. But I tell you these things because I want to build credibility with you. And I want you to know that if somebody like me can do it, I'm not special in any way, any one of you guys can do it. And it's really important. I also want you to know that I'm not a guy that lives in a van down by the river. Remember the Chris Farley skit on Saturday Night Live? He did it in some movies. He lives in a van down by the river. I live in a van down by the river. I try to practice what I preach. And are we doing okay on audio? Yes. Excellent. I don't really consider myself to be an exceptionally smart guy, but I've done some smart things. And like I said before, if I can do it, any of you guys can do it. What's also important to note is that my own personal financial success did not come from being a speaker or selling lots of books or having an infomercial on TV. My success came from the old-fashioned way, which was hard work in the private sector, a lot of perseverance, I made a lot of mistakes, and I just got luckier a lot more times than I didn't get lucky. And what's interesting, and I want you to see, is there's a lot of people who, what I call spew financial advice. These are the people you see on late night TV, on the infomercials, telling you how you can become a millionaire by flipping real estate with no money down and no risk. If you buy this kit, you can do that. What's interesting about what I call these marketeers, they're essentially financial celebrities. What's interesting about them is how they market and what keywords they use to market to the masses. And they're very financially successful, but they earned all their money by selling people the illusion of success and not really being successful themselves. And when I came out with my book, and you guys all have a copy of it, I talked to a lot of different marketing consultants and saying, how do I promote this personal finance thing? How do I promote financial literacy? How do I get people excited about it? How do I get people that want to buy the book? How do I get people that really want to change their lives and implement this? And I went to this really well-known marketing consultant. I paid him $1,500 to tell me the 8 words that I'm going to tell you next. $1,500, like $200 a word. He says, well, if you want to do anything in personal finance, and you want to market it to the masses, there's 7 words you have to say, and there's 1 word you're not allowed to say. So here we go. The word $1,500. The words that he told me is what people want to hear is that you have a simple system to show them how to make a lot of money quickly. Simple system, show you how to make a lot of money quickly. And if you think about it, every time you see an infomercial or a get-rich-quick scheme or debt cures, whatever on TV or in the mass media, you go back and you apply those words to what they're pitching. They're going to have a simple system to show you how to make a lot of money quickly. Anybody want to guess what the word is you're not allowed to use? The word of death. Work. You cannot say work. People want to hear you have a simple system to show how to make a lot of money quickly without working. Not reality, is it? But we see it on TV every day. Those 8 words cost me $1,500. They were the smartest 8 words I ever heard. So keep that in mind. Personally, I think it's people landing in a fantasy land. So let me tell you a little bit about my background. My very first job when I was 16 years old, I started working at Sears Roebuck & Company at the local mall. I worked in the hardware department and basically sold tools to old men, but it was a very fulfilling job. It wasn't really that long ago, but my salary was $4 per hour. Can you believe that? $4 an hour. And that's how I started. But after doing that for about a year, I got promoted to the sporting goods department at Sears. And I went from making $4 an hour to making $3.35 an hour plus commission. I mean 3% of whatever I sold. And so essentially as a high school junior and a little bit of a senior, I was, because of the incentive and the alignment of interest in commission, I learned how to sell really good. And so I sold treadmills, bicycles, camping equipment, exercise equipment, sports equipment, you name it. And probably as a high school student, junior and senior, I was probably making on an hourly basis probably what the average adult was making. Because I was a really good salesperson. Sears had some great training. So what I ended up doing is, while I still worked at Sears, I started a vending route. That was my first real business that I started myself. And what I did is I had about 50 of these cardboard boxes called honor boxes. And I put them in companies and offices and break rooms all over I grew up in the Denver area, all over the Denver area. And basically I'd go to Sam's Club every week and get Snickers bars, potato chips and things like that, put them in there, and then you would trust people to actually put the money in because they could steal everything. And had some interesting experiences, some great learning opportunities. But what I found out is about 92% of the people were honest, so you got paid about 92% of the time. And I ran that business while I was still working at Sears. I'd take, I'd have 1 day a week off from Sears. I'd go around to Sam's Club, get my Snickers bars, go fill up the honor boxes, collect the money, take it to the bank. And it was a great little business. It was a lot of work, but it was a good little business. And 18 months later, at the age of 18 years old, I sold that business. My first business I sold for $5,000. I thought it was all the money in the world at the time. I then took that $5,000 and invested it. I started a charter bus company. And at that time, that's right when limited stakes gambling got legalized in Colorado. So the towns of Black Hawk, Central City, and Cripple Creek started limited stakes gambling up in the mountains. And so there was an opportunity to take busloads of people up there who didn't want to drive the narrow mountain roads and didn't want to fight with the lack of parking and didn't want to worry about drinking and driving. And so it was like a perfect timing. So I found a local mentor who invested in my business. and helped me get started at the age of 18. I actually started that business spring break of my senior year in high school. So while all my friends were going somewhere on senior trip in some exotic place in Mexico, I was starting a business. And I built that transportation business up drastically. In a few years while I was still in college, that ended up becoming a multi-million-dollar business. I had a lot of funny stories along the way. We ended up branching out, not just doing casino trips. We ended up merging with a company in Fort Collins that did airport shuttles. We did charter transportation for all the professional sports training teams, big tours all across the country. But I have 3 funny stories I'm just going to give you a little hint of, and you'll have to read the book for the rest. So funny story number 1 related to, I love that business. Funny story number 1 is when I was in high school, my high school guidance counselor said I wouldn't amount to very much. He went on to say something about it if you didn't apply yourself, but all I heard was you're not going to apply very much. A few years later, I ended up walking into our office in Denver, and my high school guidance counselor was working for me. He was one of the drivers there. That's funny story number 1. It's told in the book. My second funny story, which is funny now, was not funny then. While I was remotely running my business, so I was trying to go to school at CSU. The business was in Denver. My very first employee was an older lady, but at that time, everyone was older than me. I thought she was going to be the greatest thing in the world, being a salesperson for us. She embezzled $10,000 from me. Like 6 months I'd been in business, and I had no experience with this. And so my company name was Western Charters. She opened a bank account, her own bank account with the name Western Transportation. And when the checks would come into our office from customers, instead of depositing them into my account, she put them into her account. The interesting thing was the police didn't want anything to do with this. Oh, this is a civil matter. I thought she should have gone to jail. And so I got a very good experience at a young age with the court system. Couldn't afford an attorney. You know, I just went to the attorney and he says, well, if you pay me $5 grand, I'll take a look at it. I mean, the lady took 10 and didn't have, wasn't going to be successful getting it back. So I learned how to do a small claims case. I represented myself pro se, which basically means you represent yourself without an attorney. I won. But then I also learned another valuable lesson is just because you have a judgment doesn't mean you have money. And so I spent the next 8 years trying to get money from this lady, and I think I got $2,000 for that. That's funny story number 2. Funny story number 3 related to the bus business. Many years later after I got out of the business, actually about 6 years ago, my original mentor and investor, who was a banker and also an attorney, ended up borrowing some money from me, borrowed $4,000 from me, and disappeared. I haven't heard from him since. So, it was a great experience. I sold the business in 1997. I went to race cars with a friend of mine for a while. And one of our sponsors in our race team was a telecommunications company. And so, again, without going into extremely great detail, I started in 1998 a telecommunications company. We were really early on in a technology called voice over IP, which if any of you guys know what Skype is or Vonage or something like that, those are consumer versions of VoIP. But we did it on more of a commercial level. And so we were really early on with this VoIP technology. And we basically sold phone systems to call centers. And so some of our early clients were people you may have heard of like Google, George Foreman Grills, Gibson Guitars, KLM Airlines, Remax. In the business, we were at the right place at the right time, we had the right people, and the business went like this. And so in 2004, an unsolicited offer for my business showed up on my doorstep. I was 30 years old. I really wasn't planning to sell, but it was the peak of our market. People wanted to get into it. And I essentially had a private equity group, private group of investors that wanted to buy that company. And they wrote me a really big check, and they got that company in 2004. And so here I am, 30 years old, essentially retired. I signed a 5-year non-compete agreement, so I couldn't work in the business I knew, telecom, but I had my hands on a lot of other things. So what do? I took a 5-year vacation. Literally. I got bored with that, but I took a couple of years off and just traveled, had fun, took some classes, lived in Florida, did a bunch of fun things, really just lived life to the fullest, and did all the things that I never had the time to do before because I was so busy working. But about halfway through my vacation, I really decided to do something good to try to give back and try to make a difference. And I'm extremely passionate about financial literacy and financial education. And for the reasons I told you about before, I just think it's an absolute shame that we don't teach this in America. We don't teach this at any level. And so I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be able to do something that was different than the get-rich-quick guys on late-night TV, showing you stuff on infomercials. I wanted something that the average person could understand and was put in a practical format rather than theoretical. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up writing a book that you guys all have in front of you. And that's a thick book. It's 472 pages long. It took me a year to write. And so what I ended up doing is I went and lived in Key West, Florida for 3 months and went scuba diving every day, and I started the book. And so what I had done, when I had my telecom company, I had a lot of younger employees. I also had a lot of young friends. And I didn't have any special skills. Every bit of finance stuff I learned, pretty much learned the hard way, because I didn't get taught it in school either. And so what I had done, every time I had a friend or an employee come to me and ask about buying a house or a car or how to set up a retirement account or credit cards or saving for the future or whatever it was, I kept little sticky notes of every question they asked, and I kept this whole binder. And so I basically went through my binder and I found out all the questions that people continued to ask and nobody seemed to know. And I did all the research on it and I wrote it in a book. So the book took me about a year to do. And so the book launched in December of 2007 is when it got released. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever. But then the book gave me the platform to really go out and try to speak about this topic to colleges and high schools, which is where I'm really passionate about. And let's face it, if you wait till you're 35 or 40 years old till you get personal finance and start saving and spending and learn some of these things, I hate to tell you, it's too late. If you're married and you've got a house you can't afford and 2.8 kids and cars in the driveway, I'm being very honest with you, it's never really too late, but you're way behind the 8 ball. The right age to learn about personal finance is the age you guys are now, and even younger to be very honest. And so I use my book as a platform, the credibility in the market to go out there, and that's how I got on Kudo and Today's Show and did a bunch of media things when we talked to high schools and colleges and just tried to get the word out there. Overall, pretty frustrating experience. I don't have time to go into it today, but generally speaking, the people that should be putting the stuff in the curriculums in the high school level have no interest in doing it. That's a whole different story in itself. But I went out, started traveling around the country. The second thing I did is I said, I want something visual. I want something that people can relate to show them why they need personal finance, or why they need financial literacy, and why they need financial success. So I created a website called financialliteracyquiz.com. I don't know if any of you here have been to it, but basically what I did is I created a 50-question multiple choice quiz that covers a variety of topics relating to personal finance that I think every American adult should know. And I put those on there as a multiple choice quiz. We've had hundreds of thousands of people take the quiz. Anybody want to guess what the average score is? 48% as of 2 days ago. 48%. So the average American can't even pass this very simple, what I think is very simple financial literacy quiz. Feel free to go take the quiz. What's interesting, some of you may have, my quiz is mainly aimed towards adults. We ask 3 pieces of information: your age range, your highest level of education, and your zip code, so we can look at geography. But it's totally anonymous. There's no identifying information. There's a nonprofit out there that really is focused on getting financial literacy in the high school. It's a group called the Jumpstart Coalition. Some of you, when you were in high school, may have seen some of their material. But what's interesting is they also do a financial literacy quiz for high school students. It's a much more simplified version of mine, but it's more what high school students should know about basic personal finance. The really interesting piece is their average score of high school students on their quiz is identical to mine. It's also 48%. And that's down from 58% when they started doing it. So what's happened? People are learning less and less about personal finance. Personal finance is becoming much more complicated every day. So interesting things. The next step that I did, so I wrote the book, went out on this initiative, traveled around the country, did the quiz. The next thing I did is I produced a documentary movie, and that's how I met Professor McClatchy. So I took a film crew and we traveled for 3 months across America. Have any of you guys seen like Super Size Me by Morgan Spurlock, or Inconvenient Truth by Alan Moore, any other good documentary, The Cove, any good documentary movies? I wanted to create a documentary movie that just shocked the hell out of people about why financial literacy was so important. And so I took a film crew, we traveled from New Hampshire to LA and everywhere in between. We interviewed over 100 people. Average interview was 1 hour, with 120 hours of raw footage. And we asked questions about personal finance. And we talked to real people on the street. I talked to a plumber who used to make $100 grand a year, now lives in the back of his van. I talked to a U.S. senator. I talked to celebrities. I talked to real people. I talked to educators. I talked to school principals. I talked to anybody that would talk to me and do a good interview. Now, sadly, I got all the footage done, and then last year my non-compete expired, and some other projects took priority, so we didn't get it finally produced and distributed yet, but still working on that. So unfortunately, that documentary project, we have all the raw footage. If anybody wants to see it, we have clips of it on our website at secretsofmoneymovie.com or financialliteracymovie.com, or you can just Google me and you'll find it either way. So the hope is that project unfortunately got put on the shelf for a little bit, but the hope is to find a joint venture partner this year who's in the movie business and can get it out and get it distributed. I don't know if any of you saw a movie called Maxed Out that was done by a friend of mine, James Scurlock. He's been incredibly helpful in trying to help us get our project finished. And he ended up selling it to getting it in Netflix. And this film, Maxed Out, which was really about the credit card credit card all done. He ended up getting it into Cinemax and Netflix, so we would hope to have something similar. So you may see Secrets of Money, the documentary movie, coming to the big screen somewhere around the end of this year or early next year if we get on top of that. So I did this financial literacy initiative, the book, the quiz, the movie. That took about 3 years of my life. And then last year my non-compete expired in the telecom business. So I got back in the business that I loved, and we're doing basically the same thing we did before, a little new twist on the technology. About half of what we do is called telecom consulting. We go into businesses that spend a lot of money in phone stuff. We sit down with them, understand what their needs are, look through all their bills, find out how to do it better, faster, cheaper. And we actually get paid a fee equal to a percentage of what we save our customers. So really interesting business model. There's an alignment of interest. So the more we save them, the more we get in the fee. So we have a true alignment of interest to do the absolute best job for them. And then on the phone system side of the house, there's a whole big development in voice over IP called hosted phone systems, and I won't bore you with the technology, but it's pretty cool stuff. We're doing some neat things, and I've been back doing that for about 8 months and just absolutely loving it. But again, I'm working a ton, so it just doesn't allow me a lot of time to do speaking events like this. But good to be back in it. All right, let's talk about why is financial education important. So before I do that, let me sort of preface that with some statistics. I told you I was going to give you some statistics. When Professor Makashi gave me my introduction today, I think she said I was going to entertain, inspire, and educate everybody here today. She didn't say I was going to scare the hell out of you, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to get your attention. So let me give you some scary statistics. Scary statistic number one, 45% of college graduates have credit card debt. Of that, the average is more than $3,000. How many people here fit into that category? How many here want to admit they fit in that category? That's probably the truth. 45%, can you believe that? Scary statistic number two, the number of people ages 18 to 24 who are declaring bankruptcy, people in your age group, number of people 18 to 24 declaring bankruptcy has increased 96% in the last 10 years. If that's not scary, I don't know what is. Next statistic. This is I think the big one. The number of people who declare bankruptcy annually is greater than the number of people who graduate from college, file for divorce, or get diagnosed with cancer combined. How scary is that? How many people do you know that fit into one of those three categories? More people than that are going to go bankrupt this year. So you get financial education. Speaking of bankruptcy, Social Security. According to Social Security's own website, Social Security system is supposed to be bankrupt by the year 2042. If you do the quick math, that's just about 3 years before most of you guys are going to start to retire. Fantastic. I don't know about you, I'm not depending on Social Security, and I don't think you should either. But a generation ago, that's how people retired. I mean, think of how many older relatives you have today that depend on Social Security for part of that retirement. And I tell you, I think they're living in a fantasy land if you think there's going to be anything there for you or I when we're ready to retire. So what are we planning to? Charles Schwab has a foundation, and they did some research about a year ago. And they went out and they surveyed high school seniors. And they said, when you get out of college, within 5 years of getting into the workforce, what do you think your average salary would be? Do you have any idea what the number came out to be? But the average high school graduate says, I'm going to make on an annual basis within 5 years of getting out of college. The average was $145,000. Interesting to note, boys were higher than girls. Boys actually thought they were going to make $177,000. Girls thought they were going to make $132,000. The reality is, they will be lucky if they can make between a quarter and a half of that. So, again, a little bit of a fantasy land. The number one fear of older adults is that they will not have enough money to last through retirement for as long as they live. Can you imagine that? You're 70 some odd years old, you worked all your life, and you're out of money. You have everything you've ever wanted except money, and you're living. It's a horrible thing. The same Charles Schwab survey asked high school students what concerned them. 66% of high school students said they were concerned how they were going to support themselves when they got out of high school. These are scary statistics here. We talked about my financial literacy quiz being 48%. We talked about Jumpstart being 48% as well. But here's some statistics that are really related to, again, those same high school seniors. Only 13% of high school seniors surveyed by my quiz and also by Jumpstart's quiz are knowledgeable about what a 401k plan is. Only 23% of high school graduating seniors know what a credit report is or what components make up a credit report. Only 22% of graduating high school seniors know how you take money and make it grow for a lifetime. Those are scary statistics. So let me ask you guys, now this is the audience participation part, let me ask you by a show of hands. Of you in this room here, how many of you were required to take a semester-long class solely focused on personal finance to graduate high school? 1, 2, 3. How many of you think that every high school student should be required to take such a class? So why aren't we doing it? That's the challenge. I spent 3 years trying to find that out, and I don't know if I ever got the answer. They're not. All right, let's talk about why financial success and financial literacy is important. And there's probably a misconception out there. The first thing that probably comes to people's mind when I say financial success, what do you think of? What do you think of? You think of material possessions, right? You think of MTV Crib, you think of Jersey Shore, right? Living the good life. I mean, it's the modern media. You know, it's like modern media. It's how we all learn. It's like fantasy land, the web, TV. Let me tell you, I don't know if anybody else has ever seen that show Sweet 16 on MTV. Not every 16-year-old gets a $100,000 party for their 16th birthday. They don't want to get Range Rovers and Rolls Royces. That's I don't know what fantasy land they're living in. But the problem is we see the media personify all of these material wealth things. And so people get this impression that you need to make money to buy stuff. And that's not the reason to be financially successful. Money's not everything. There's this misconception that you need to keep up with the Joneses, right? Your friends get a bigger house, you need to get a bigger house. Your friends drive a newer car, you need to drive a newer car. Friends wear designer clothes, you need to wear designer clothes. Quit trying to keep up with the Joneses. I'll tell you a little secret. The Joneses are probably miserable and deep in debt and on the brink of a divorce. That's just the reality. Very, very honest with you. What's interesting about financial education, and Professor McClatchy talked about this when she did her intro, is it affects you regardless of your age, your income level, or your degree or your level of education. So think about it. It doesn't matter whether you're 18 years old, 28, 38, 58, 88 years old. Financial education and financial savvy and financial success is important to you, more particularly at younger ages. Number 2, it doesn't matter on your income. I don't care if you're a minimum wage earner, the rest of your life is flipping burgers, you're a corporate executive making $100 grand a year, or you're a sports figure making $1 million a year. Financial education is important to you. And I don't care what degree you go to college for. I don't care if you get a GED, you get a high school diploma, you get an undergraduate degree, you get an MBA, you go to law school, you go to medical school. Financial education is still just as relevant to you. And short of a specialized degree in finance, we don't teach the basics of financial literacy. Finally, it doesn't matter, it just doesn't matter your age, your income, or whatever your education level is. Financial literacy is relevant to every one of us. When we were filming our documentary movie a couple of years ago, I ended up getting to meet, we did an interview with a guy named John Sally. Does anybody know who he is? Big NBA star, cool dude. The guy's like this tall, I got a photo next to him, I was right before. He told me, he had built and lost fortunes from playing basketball because he always had other people manage his money. And he says, listen, I don't read this guy's a big NBA star, he's like, I don't ever read the sports page. There's nothing in the sports page that will help me with my money or my business. I read the business page every day. I thought that was interesting. Another reason why financial literacy is so important in financial success is the more educated you are about your money, the more knowledge you have. Knowledge is power. And the lack of knowledge about personal finance, I hate to say this, is not politically correct, is ignorance. Nobody wants to be ignorant, but if you don't learn and take it as a personal responsibility to learn financial education and make yourself financially savvy so you're financially successful, you unfortunately will be financially ignorant, and you also fall into situations where you have bad financial habits. So start at a young age. But the really big reason of why financial success and financial savvy is important, again, not the big houses, not the TV sets, not the MTV lifestyle, is what I call options, opportunities, and flexibility. And let me tell you what I mean by it. I had to write these down. Number 1, what that means is you have the ability to explore job options. So when you get out of college, you may have a limited amount of options and you need to take a job. But as you get a little bit older, you will have more options available to you if you are financially stable and financially successful. You also have the time, the opportunity, and the options to take time off if you want. Similar to what I did, maybe not 5 years, but if you want to take some time off from work and pursue some other passion, financial success will allow you to do that. It also allows you to start a business. A lot of you guys here I know are in the business program, entrepreneurs. If you want to become a true entrepreneur, you're going to need to have some resources to make that happen. And financial success at a young age will allow you to do that. The other thing that financial success will allow you to do is pursue education options. You want to go get a master's degree or go to law school or medical school or some other degree. You want to do lifetime learning. Maybe you get out in the financial world, you want to become a CFP or go get your stockbroker's license. You have the ability to do that and also help your family do that if you so choose. Financial success means that you can respond to family emergencies and healthcare issues. Could be yours, could be somebody else's. You never know when somebody's going to get an accident or get diagnosed with a disease. It could be you, it could be somebody you care about. And not only is there going to be expense from the medical bills, excuse me, but you may need to take time off work to either be that person or be with that person. Being financially successful allows you to provide for yourself, your potential future family, your spouse and kids. Allows you to volunteer your time on things you believe in. A perfect example is me here today. If I wasn't financially successful and had a regular job that I had to be at, and I needed that money to make my rent payment the week, I couldn't come hang out with you guys today. I'd be like, nah, I gotta work, I gotta get paid. So it allows you to be giving of your time. Also allows you to be giving of your resources, either younger in life or later in life. Essentially, you do philanthropy. But understand something about philanthropy. I'm a big believer in philanthropy. We don't teach that well either. Understand, before you can be a philanthropist, you must first be a capitalist. You got to get the money somewhere to be able to give it away. Remember that. Another option of financial success allows you to retire when you want to retire. You don't have to work till you're 65 or 75 or 80 years old. You don't want to. It gives you that option. And finally, just mental well-being. People who are financially stable and financially literate and financially secure, they have better relationships. They have less stress. They're healthier. They sleep well at night. What do you think the number one thing that couples fight about is? Money. Money, of course. So it takes that equation out of your relationship. So let me summarize this for you. This is not necessarily a PC, politically correct summary. Money is not everything. Understand that. Money is not everything, but being in debt or being poor sucks for a lot of different reasons. And again, it's not about the material stuff you can buy. It's about the options and opportunity that financial success and financial savvy brings your way. So without further ado, are you guys ready for the 10 secrets?
Yes.
All right. Secret number 1, make more money. So, I didn't say these were really hard, but sometimes people don't ever get told these and you never really get that. So more likely than not, when you guys get out in the real work world, you will have a set job, a salary of either per year or per hour or whatever you do. Always try to find ways to make more money. Make sacrifices when you're younger, so you don't have to make sacrifices when you're older. And somebody told me, I think we were calling our document a really good quote, is at some time in your life after you get out of college, you will have to live like a college student again. Living on a very fixed income, eating a lot of ramen noodles, those types of things. You get to choose, is it going to be while you're in your 20s or while you're in your retirement years? When would you like to live like a college student again? When do you think it would be most conducive to you? Make more money. And what I mean by that is if you have a job, try to find a way to put in that extra effort so that you hopefully get a bonus, a raise, a promotion. If you're an entrepreneur and you're working for yourself, think about putting in an extra day a week. Nobody says you can only work 5 days a week. You can work 6, you can work 7. You do what it takes. I'm not telling you to have no social life, but if your week consists of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday going to hang out with your friends at the bar, maybe think about, well, what if I just went out with them Thursday and Friday, but I took Wednesday night and I worked extra at my job, or I got a second job, or I got a side gig. Those sacrifices you make younger in life will have huge impacts on you, exponential positive impacts down the road. Make sacrifices now while you're younger than having to make sacrifices while you're older. And a perfect example of that is my bus transportation company I started. I sacrificed not going to senior trip during spring break of high school so that I could start a bus transportation company. Now, because I took that sacrifice then, I can go on spring break anywhere I want, anytime I want now. If I didn't, and I had taken the quick solution then, I might not have that luxury that I have today. Secret number 2 is invest in yourself. And what I'm talking about there is invest in yourself to make yourself financially educated. You and I have to take personal responsibility for our financial education. The schools aren't doing it, parents aren't doing it, at least not doing it consistently. And so the person who is going to look out for your financial well-being does not live in the White House. He or she lives in your house. And so what I'm saying there is do not rely on the government to be your source of financial comfort, because you're not going to be real happy with that. Rely on yourself. Regardless of what happens with the economic climate out there, the absolute best defense is a financially educated consumer who knows what real estate is, who knows what a 401k is, who knows what an IRA is. And again, we're not trying to make people stockbrokers, but we need to have the basics, the very basics, so you know how to answer the right questions, but you've got to do it yourself. What I'm saying is there's a lack of this education out there, and so the only way this is going to happen is if you take it on yourself and take personal responsibility for your own financial education. And I don't care whether you read a book, my book, or anybody else's. You go take a class, you take a seminar, you get coaching from a trusted advisor. Do something to make yourself financially educated. Nobody else is going to do it for you. A perfect example of how financial education has played a huge role in somebody's life is Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I got to meet him a few years ago, and he was telling me a story about how, like in the 80s, Donald Trump went bankrupt. He's probably been bankrupt multiple times, but he was walking down the street in New York City, and he sees basically a beggar on the corner holding out a can trying to get quarters. And he looks at that guy, and he says, that guy has a net worth that's $180 million more than me. He was $180 million in debt just going bankruptcy, and the guy on the street corner had a higher net worth than Donald Trump. But what Donald Trump had was financial education. He was savvy. He knew how to work banks, he knew about real estate, he knew about 401ks, he knew about buying, he knew all this stuff. So his education is what allowed him to go from being bankrupt to being back on TV again. So the guy's got, his apprentice show, he's successful. Financial education plays a huge role. And I'll tell you on a very personal note, the last couple of years have not been kind to me as some of the businesses I'm in with the financial changes. And my own financial education is the only thing that saved me from that. Item number 3, save. And save more than anybody you know. Do it automatically and do it today and pay yourself first. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Whenever you first start making money, you need to put yourself as your first expense on the list, putting something into a savings account. And so when you work out your budget, when you go get your first job, you don't want to put rent and car payment, going out with friends. Your first thing is paying yourself, investing in yourself. If your company offers a 401k, I want you to take advantage of it. I want you to max out 100% whatever the match is. If they don't, and even if they do, you need to start an IRA. The reality is, if any of you here made money last year in 2009 and haven't opened an IRA, you have about 5 hours to do so yet today. So you can actually put in and contribute to your last year IRA up until the date that your tax return is due, April 15th. So if any of you made money last year, you can still open an IRA and either get tax deferred or a tax deduction and have money set aside. That, by the way, can never be touched if you ever were to go bankrupt. It's always protected. Companies, a lot of companies have cut back. There's still a lot of bigger employers, which I'm sure a lot of you are going to work for, do matching programs and offer 401ks. If your company offers a matching program, wherever you end up working in the future, offers matching programs, you are completely stupid if you do not take advantage of 100% of that match. And so typically companies would match 3% of your earnings, but in 3% they would match. I don't know anywhere else in America where you can get a guaranteed 100% cash-on-cash return than the matching programs. And so when I had my telecom company, I was completely shocked and surprised when we have employees that wouldn't go, we'd match 3%, that wouldn't contribute the complete amount. And mainly it was just because they didn't know. They didn't know the difference. But the savings you do now, when you're younger age, less than 25, less than 30, will have exponential benefits later in life. And so the key that you guys all have, the advantage everyone in this room has over me, is you guys have time. I'm 15 years behind you before I figured it all out and started getting on top of it. So the decisions you make now will have long-term ramifications, good or bad, on what you do in the future and what options and opportunities become available to you. People talk about stock market and saving, and they talk about, oh, you got to know how to time the market. You do not know how to time the market. It is the time in the market, not the timing of the market. So over the long term, you'll do well. If you want to take advantage of what's called dollar cost averaging, which means you invest consistently, you put the same amount in, you have it taken directly out of your paycheck if you can, and when the market's going up, that same dollar amount buys less shares. When the share prices are down, that same dollar amount buys more shares. Dollar cost averaging, do it automatically, do it consistently, but please, as soon as you start making money, start investing in a 401k or an IRA. Don't say, I'm going to wait till 25, I'm going to wait till 30. You will not be happy later in life. You don't need to make big money in America to retire a relatively wealthy person or retire comfortably. You just got to start early and you've got to do it consistently. And I can't overemphasize that point. All right. Number 4, spend wisely. Always live within your means. Remember what I talked about the Joneses? Quit trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're likely miserable, deep in debt, and on the brink of a divorce. I'm very serious about that. So live below your means. Just because you get a raise or you get a, I can't believe every year I hear people on this day, I got this tax refund. Listen to the radio on the way over here, and some ladies called in the radio station saying, I got this tax refund for like $8,000 from last year. Well, what are you doing? Well, I'm going to take that and go to Hawaii. That's not the right answer. The right answer is I'm going to save that money. I'm going to invest it. Maybe spend some of it on a trip. Don't blow all of it. It's not free money. And so spend wisely, live within your means. Understand that I think interest is the devil. And I think interest is the root of all evil. And if the last couple of years of the economic climate haven't proven that to all of us consumers, I don't know what will. But avoid debt at every single expense. The reality is all of us, the vast majority of us, we buy our first house, we're going to have to finance it. I'm okay financing things that appreciate the value, but cars, credit cards, trips, luxuries, those types of things, ever financing those makes absolutely no sense to me. You got to watch out when holidays come up about overspending. You know, Christmas and holidays these days become so much about material giving, and so I have this philosophy that's called people, not presents. And I actually own that domain name. If any of you entrepreneurial people have some way that I can leverage peoplenotpresents.com. And so, you know, just look at what you're spending, set a budget, live within your means. Secret number 5, wake up. Literally, and this is actually in the book. So what I mean by wake up is the early bird gets the worm. Is most successful people I know are up and working at the crack of dawn every day. And so my best friend is an attorney. He's in the office every morning between 3:30 and 4 a.m. That's what works for him. I don't know any very successful people, with the exception of the one nightclub owner I know who's very successful, who is not in their office early in the morning and starts work early. So you get up early, you get to work early, and I do that too. You get more work done before 9 a.m. than most people do all day. And so what I'm telling you is don't sleep your life away. Don't go out and party every night or stay up late at night. If you want to be successful in what you do and do a good job for your customers, you will find out that if you can condition yourself to get up and get to work early, you'll be a lot more productive and have a lot more success. Number 6 is networking, getting to know people. And when I say networking, I'm not meaning hanging out with your friends at the bar on Friday night. You know, these are not the people that are going to get you jobs. The people out there in the business community are the people that are going to be resources for you for references or for jobs or for opportunities and things that can help you. And there's this saying you may have heard, it's not who you know, it's what you know. You guys all heard that saying? I don't really like that saying. I kind of have a little different twist to it. And my version of it is, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Think about that. So it doesn't matter that you happen to have a Rolodex and have somebody's name in it who can help you somewhere later in life, either as a customer or reference or job opportunity. It's really important that you network with that person over a period of time and build relationships so they know who you are. So that when you call them or you email them or you contact them, they know who you are. And you're not just some random person calling you who saw their name in a list and they have a highfalutin title. Number 7, know what your time is worth. And so what I'm saying here is there's so many mundane, some may be mundane or may not, but know what your time is worth and maximize your time. And a perfect example for me is I absolutely hate to clean my house, right? But it has to get cleaned. So I know that I can pay somebody to clean my house X dollars per hour, and I know I can take that same time and go do something else, my vocation, and make more than that $10 per hour that I pay for the house to get cleaned. And so if you love cleaning the house, I'm not harping on that. But find things that you don't like to do that you can outsource to somebody else, and don't use that time to go sit and sip cocktails by the pool. Go to work. Do something that creates revenue for you that more than pays for that service that you have done. And so, perfect example is mowing the lawn. Well, you may have spent 6 hours on a Saturday mowing the lawn when you could have gone to the office and either made a good impression on your boss, brought in more business, found more customers, done more marketing, made more money. But you could have paid the neighbor kid $25 to do it, and you would have made $200 by going to work. So look at what your time's worth. My good friend, the attorney, called me a couple years ago and said, I got to go to Boulder to take my Range Rover down to get some work done on it. And I said, you're kidding me. You're leaving in the middle of the day, and you're going to drive to Boulder to get your car work done. He said, yeah. I said, what do you bill an hour? He says, $150. I said, how long do you think that trip's going to take? He says, 2 hours. It's $300. So what do you think about calling them up and seeing what they would charge to come pick up the car and transport it for you? Calls me back 2 minutes later. He's like, that was a good idea. They charged $50. I'm like, so you made $250. Where's my half? Yeah, there's a story about that in the book. Item number 8, learn from your mistakes. People tell me, oh, Ron, you're so successful. Well, to be honest with you, I have learned more from my mistakes in this world than I have from my successes. And so I encourage you, anytime you make a mistake, use that as a learning experience. For me, anytime I've made a mistake, it's usually cost me money, and I don't think that's a mistake again. Number 9, put in 110% effort in anything you can do. My mother once told me, any job worth doing is worth doing right. And she's here, so she can attest to that. Any job worth doing is worth doing right. Put in 110% to anything that you do. You'll be happier, you'll be more fulfilled, and you'll make a better impression on people. And don't ever devalue the opportunity to have a good mentor. People want to mentor people that they see working hard. Number 10, probably the most important, is have fun. Whatever you do in your life, do something you're passionate about, have fun doing it. If you find something that's fun for you to do, you will never work another day in your life. I am madly passionate about what I do. I love it. Doesn't mean I don't have challenging days and issues come up, and not every day is is living the dream and whatever, thing full of roses. But it really is fun, and so it's taken me a while to get to that position. And I really recommend whatever you choose to do, don't just jump at the first thing. Take some time and research it. Don't put yourself in a dead-end career or a dead-end job. Take the time to pick something you're going to be passionate about and like. And so, without further ado, that's the 10. I'll open this up for a Q&A, and we'll head to the reception. So, anybody want to raise their hand and ask any questions? Yes, sir.
You talked about how Colorado changes gaming laws and some of the emergence of the technologies. What do you think luck plays into this, or do you think that you kind of create your own luck?
What do I think luck plays into it?
Yeah.
So much I think luck plays into it. I think spotting opportunities plays into it. So anytime there's going to be a significant change, obviously in that case there's a law change, it creates opportunity. One of the big opportunities, just to sort of bring this up to current times, what's the headlines? One of the current opportunities that I'm not personally exploring is the whole medical marijuana thing. I mean, you talk about some changing that's happening. There's some opportunity there. There's some downsides. But whenever something changes, there's going to be opportunity there. You just have to spot the opportunity and take advantage of it. Good question. Yes.
Is there any newspaper or website that you visit regularly to stay up on current issues, current financial development, so that you're up to?
I do read a lot of stuff. I mean, you should read my book. How's that for a good sales thing? I think Inc. magazine, Success magazine are fantastic. In our part of it, those are big national things, and I think they provide invaluable resources. There's all sorts of information on the web that's a great resource for entrepreneurship. But I tell you what, locally, you should read the Northern Colorado Business Report. I think that is probably one of the best business publications about what's going on in our area that I've ever seen. And they do a really good job of getting stories. They make them quick, they make them concise, and so I read that. It comes out every 2 weeks. If you don't have a subscription, I recommend you get it. Great question. Have time for a couple more? Yes, sir.
As a soon-to-be graduate, I'm kind of at a crossroads, and I want to kind of ask you, since you have an entrepreneurial background, I kind of have two paths I'm looking at. You're doing entrepreneurship and finding a business and taking some ideas and going with them and getting venture capitalists involved and taking a percentage of that, or doing something commission sales fund with finance, kind of thing, educating people, getting them on their road to retirement, building up clientele, kind of like a commission sales, either insurance or like credential kind of thing. But what would you suggest as a young person, take the risk now, or get into the thing early and build up the client base?
Yeah, I need to know a lot more about you to give you really definitive advice. Generally, I would say, I think, unless you have a rock star idea, you're going to have a tough time getting venture capital. There's sort of this illusion out there that there's all this big money, and they just throw it at you if you have an idea and they take ownership. And I think that's probably going to be a little tougher than you think. I think that there is some, I don't know you personally, so I can't give you an exact answer, but I think there's some value to getting out into the real corporate world. If you would have somebody that would teach you some structure. You learn so much in school, but you need to understand how to apply that to real life. And if you had an opportunity to work for a company, I don't know if it's a big one or a small one, and you were just getting out and getting some structure, some additional education, build up some financial reserves, and explore some different things that somebody else has done, even if it's not a long-term thing, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that would add some value. But if you've got some great idea and there's some way you can do that in conjunction with your job, or you can do that while you're still in your school, then by all means, absolutely pursue it. And if it really is that great of an idea, you just got to do something different than the next guy. And so an entrepreneur to be successful, they've got to find a challenge that the market, that there's not a need, that the need in the market's not being met. So I'd say just explore a lot of different things to find what's the best fit that you think for you. Just because you start with something doesn't mean you have to do that forever. But great question. What else? Yes. What are my views on hiring financial planners? Again, a very specific question that I can only give you a general answer for. I think overall they're very good. I think that you as a consumer need to be financially literate on yourself, not to the level of a financial planner. My best recommendation for a financial planner is get a fee-only one. There's a lot of financial planners out there that actually make a commission based on what stocks and things that they sell you. They make big, big money on that. And so those people do not have an alignment of interest with you to do the best job for you. They have an alignment of interest. They have bills to pay too, so the more stuff they sell you, the more money they're going to make. And one of the areas that I really caution younger people about is things like life insurance. Unless you have dependents, you don't need life insurance as a general rule. Life insurance in the insurance industry pays the absolute highest commissions. They pay the commissions for an insurance agent or a financial planner who sells your life insurance policy can be as much as 1 year's worth of your premiums. So if somebody sold you a plan, maybe it was $100 a month for the next 20 years, they could earn a commission equal to $1,200. So you just really have to look at what alignment of interest people have. And again, if you need help, there's nothing wrong seeing a financial planner, but just go into it understanding, do they get paid a flat fee, regardless of what they sell you or whatever you buy, or do they get paid a percentage of what you buy, and then you know where their interest is coming from. Great question. Anyone else? Anyone? Yes, sir.
How do you find the anticipating that how do you find the person who funded your first business?
Yep. Yeah, the banker attorney who absconded with my money.
Yeah.
He was a guest speaker at my high school and was really active. We had a much smaller group than this that he would come speak to about every 2 months. And so when I came up with this business plan, I ended up writing a business plan and presented it to him. And he, not the bank, I think invested about $15,000 of his own money. And it took me about almost 2 years to pay it back. But he was very gracious at the time and just wanted his original investment back. But again, it's back to that networking thing. And who knows you? I made sure when he came into my high school classes that I could go talk to him and that he knew who I was in case I ever needed to call him for something. And that's how I got that. Great question.
We got one more question.
One more. Anybody want to ask one more? Everybody knows everything they want to know. Oh, one more over here. Yes, sir.
You mentioned student loans at the very beginning. Getting out of college, what's your best advice for repaying on their schedule because they are really low interest loans?
Right.
Or as fast as you can get it today?
It depends on your specific situation, how much money you're making. I would love to see people get rid of those student loans as quickly as they can. And so, I mean, obviously, if you don't have enough money to make payments or to make more payments, you pay whatever you can. But if it's the difference between, okay, I'm living in an apartment now, I'm making enough money at work that I can either go get a bigger condo or a bigger house, or I can pay more of my student loans, I try to get rid of those loans as soon as possible. It's just debt that you don't need. So I'd like to see it gone as quickly as possible. Great question. Thank you.
I'm director of the Monfort Executive Professor Program, and we've had the pleasure of being able to co-sponsor Braun Mincher coming in today together with the Delta Sigma Pi, the business professional fraternity of the sponsors today as well. What Braun didn't say, I'm going to add an 11, which is what he just demonstrated today. Talked about saving, talked about philanthropy. What he's just done today is invest. The investment in you. He's giving back to the community, in this case, giving back to the business community. And one of the roles of the executive professor program, executives find time to give back to business students. Advancing causes of education, whether it be financial literacy or your education. You're sitting in those seats today. Braun was in those seats maybe 15 years ago, 12 years ago. And what's hard for you to imagine is that then you're being up here on this stage in 10, 15, 20, maybe 40 years. So as you go forward, as Braun has indicated in his book, if there's anything that you take away, including the takeaway of not only what he said in your book, is the aspect of what Braun is doing today. Giving of his time, his energy, his efforts, and devoting whole days to college business. We hope that you would give back as well and invest in those who follow behind you. You're going to obtain mentors who will help you. When you're there, mentor those who follow. That's really the mantra of the executive professor program. We can bring executives who are out there practicing their craft and their trade and come back and teach college business. So on behalf of the Monfort Executive Professor Program, Monfort College of Business, I certainly want to thank Braun. We've designated him the Monfort Executive Professor Speaker, and we'll have a plaque that she has to do for you as well.
Gosh, Merry Christmas. Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Thank you guys all for coming. I really appreciate it.
Kind enough to agree to stay for the reception. You'll have your book now. You'll open up your book, you see a yellow card, as well as the evaluation. You take the evaluation form very seriously as well. There is a collection box, just as you see. We'll have to fill them out, put them in there. If you want to go down to the reception, we'll bring the box down. Also, assigned in your book, a yellow card. Ron has agreed to autograph the book down in the student lounge. We'll have food and reception down there in the student lounge immediately below. To facilitate the flow, so we'll have Ron sign your book and then have a chance for interchange and discussion with you and members of the faculty and staff as well. I'm going to ask you to write or print out your name the way you would like it in the inscription, in the autograph in the book. So we'll give the book, the chance to talk to him, shake his hand, meet him, and we'll have the right spelling of your name, and we don't have to worry about redoing that again. Again, the reception downstairs right now